Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justice, and today we are going to be jumping into the Scream franchise with Scream 7. Now, I know I'm a little late jumping on the bandwagon to talk about this movie because most people have already expressed their feelings about it, and it's been a very mixed board, to say the least, about this movie, which is unfortunate, but I also fully understand the situation that this movie put itself in at the end of the day, and it's something that I've been a little weary on even talking about, which really sucks because at the end of the day, Scream is one of my all-time favorite franchises in the horror genre, and they really did just shoot themselves in the foot with a lot of the choices that they so happen to choose to make. And of course, you can't talk about this movie without the controversy that comes in tow with it, with Melissa Barrera and her firing for just stating her political views, even though there was no outcry from said political views she had. I feel like most people are on the same side of politics and on the right side of history with her, but I digress on that because that's not what this video is about. But with Scream 5 and 6, it did seem like they were setting up for the Carpenter sisters to be taking over this franchise, and I thought they did a very good job of passing the baton in Scream 5. I really enjoyed both Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega in these movies. I thought Scream 6 was a little bit questionable, but still a decent movie at the end of the day. So getting rid of her and then all the rewrites that they obviously had to do to this film to make it work did raise an eyebrow for me. But at the end of the day, even before I went to go see this movie, I can already tell you guys that I am biased because this is my favorite franchise of all time, and more than likely I was going to walk out of this movie with some level of enjoyment. And to just get it out of the way, I really did like this movie, and I made a point too before I went to go see it to not see other people's reviews. I didn't know people were so divided on how good this movie is or isn't, and this isn't me saying I think it's a perfect movie by any means of the word, so don't let me lose you quite yet. I just think that people are jumping the bandwagon and jumping on the train of hating on this film because of the Melissa Barrera situation. I mean, I've read articles where they've talked about how there have been protests outside of some movie theaters due to her not being in this movie. And again, like I said, I understand it, but also I am not going to boycott a movie over a studio when you have so many other people that are working for said movie that weren't involved in the firing, and at the end of the day are amazing and great people who also deserve to have jobs. I'm gonna stick away from talking about spoilers really for most of this video, and then when I jump into spoilers I will let you guys know. But for me personally, what I liked so much about this movie, unlike Scream 6, which I did have my problems with, it didn't feel like it was jumping from set piece to set piece for me. Everything felt like it was flowing for the most part, and I was really enjoying seeing Sydney back in the story, and I really loved what they did with her character, having her be this mother who's trying not to inflict her trauma onto her daughter Tatum. I thought that was awesome seeing that, and just felt like a natural progression for the character. And then having Tatum, I think she is such a beautiful inclusion to this franchise, and I do hope that if and when we get a Scream 8 that we see her again, because I thought she really did a good job in this film, and I honestly loved the actress. I just thought she fully embodied and owned the role in this movie. On top of it too, all of the nostalgia like shit that they use to just pull people in to enjoy the movie, I very much was a sucker for, and I fully fell for it. I have seen other reviews now where people have said that they let the fans do the writing for them and that they just were too on the nose with it. And I guess I'm just that sucker that fell into the trap because I loved seeing Stu back on screen. And there was multiple times where Matthew Lillard had me cackling in the middle of the movie theater with so many of his over-the-top line deliveries. And it was just fun seeing his character back into the franchise. I also love how it very much marries itself to the other movies. I like that you have all these references and callbacks to other films. And again, without getting into spoilers here, if you've seen the franchise, you love these movies, you're going to see that throughout the movie, all these little Easter eggs that they have in the movie. And on top of it, too, some of the kills in this movie I just think are top notch and are just so freaking good. And that was a problem I had with Scream 6 is yeah, it had a couple of decent kills in it, but for the most part, I didn't really care about any of them because just something about it was missing for me in that movie. I still can't put my finger on it quite well, but during that whole movie, you have all these characters that got introduced that you don't really care about that much, and then when they die, it's just kind of a feeling. And that's how I felt with the movie, so then it kind of just impacted the kills for me. This movie, I wouldn't say the characters are really any better than what they looked like in Scream 6. I think all the side characters leave a lot to be desired, and that they could have done more fleshing out with them. But overall, the kills, though, made it very iconic, and honestly, there is at least one death specifically in this movie, if not two, that I think hands down could be some of the best in this entire franchise. To go off the thing though that everybody's talking about where they are most negative in this movie is the killer reveal. And again, I'm not going to get into spoilers because unfortunately it was spoiled for me before I saw the movie, and I'm not going to inflict that upon you guys if you've somehow avoided it and haven't seen it yet. But the killer reveal did leave a lot to be desired. It very much felt like a Scooby-Doo moment with one of them where it was just like unmasking him and being like, old man Jenkins the whole time. And then the other character was also just felt very shoehorned in. I would have enjoyed if they would have tried doing something at least a little bit different with the movie and in the franchise. I think that going in a different direction with it would have helped. But at the end of the day, too, like I said, maybe it's colored because I knew who the killer was going in, but I've always expected the Scooby-Doo aspect of Scream a little bit with its killer reveals. I always expect it to be a little bit outlandish, and I also expect it, honestly, to be a little bit stupid because genuinely, I think the only actually good killer reveals full on in Scream would be Scream 1 and Scream 4. Some of them have aspects I like to them, but overall, I still have some problems with in the rest of the franchise. Overall, I wouldn't say this is the best Scream movie in the planet, but I also think it's far from the worst. And it continues to prove, again, that there isn't really necessarily a full-on bad Scream movie in the entire franchise, which I know is kicking a dead horse because all reviewers say it, that there isn't a bad Scream movie, and I just tend to agree. If you're a Scream head, I do think this is a good watch. I do think there's some enjoyable moments. I think both Sydney and Gale have some great moments to shine. I thought having the Meeks twins come back from the previous movie was a really great inclusion, and they were a lot of fun here. So if you can jump on the nostalgia bandwagon like I did and just enjoy seeing the characters yet again, then I think you'll enjoy this entry. But anyways, to go on with some of the spoilers, to talk about more in depth of stuff I liked and get the hell out of here if you don't want to hear them, I suppose. But I very much enjoyed the kills in this movie, as I just said. My favorite one happened with Grace McKenna, which, by the way, I have never heard of her before this movie, but she is blowing up, and she has a very small role in this movie, like incredibly small role in this movie, but she absolutely owns that role. She was a lot of fun the very short time we had her on the screen, and I do think it comes from her acting capabilities. And I almost forgot to mention too, so Future Justice back at it again, but she did a song with Ice Nine Kills, Twisting the Knife, and I've had that song on my repeat so much since it came out. I highly doubt it is not going to end up on my Spotify rap. It's a song they made for this movie, so if you haven't heard it yet, you should check it out because she has an absolutely gorgeous voice, and it pairs extremely well with Spencer Charnas, the lead singer of Ice Nine Kills. So that's my recommendation to you. But Grace McKenna rocks. I can't wait to see what she does in the future. As the character she played, honestly, all in all, was a fairly flat one if on paper, but I thought she brought life to it and did a very good job. But they're at this school play, and they have her attached to this like pulley system that pulls her up and down in the air, so it looks like she's flying around. And you have Ghostface coming in and swinging her around on this pulley and slamming her into walls before eventually he comes up with a knife and just starts slicing her as she's flying through the air, and then literally gutting her like a pig, as he loves to say, and letting her guts spew everywhere. And it's, even though it's so gory, it's like this weirdly beautiful shot. They very briefly showed this scene in the trailer, so I already kind of figured this was how she was going to die when I saw her getting pulled up on the pulley. But hands down, that was my favorite kill of the entire movie and has quickly become one of my all-time favorites in this entire franchise. Another one too that I would like to mention is you have this other character who is the red herring in the film. It's this son of the neighbor who is this really creepy guy who's obsessed with Sydney and is very much a true crime podcaster, something I wish they would have delved a bit more into in this movie. I think it'd be a lot of fun if we had like a character that was like the full-on true crime thing. I mean, I know they did it in the Scream TV show with Piper, if any of you guys watched that, but I would love to see it in the actual movies and see some commentary on it. But during his kill, he literally gets stabbed and then his head gets pulled up and put onto the spout of a beer tap, and then when his head falls forward, you have all of the beer and his blood like just pouring out of his mouth. It's very cartoony, but also very, very brutal, and I was here for it, and I like seeing it go in that direction, because for the most part, Scream movies, the kills are just a bunch of like stabby, stab, stab, stab. So I think it's really cool when you see it try to push away from that and do something a little different and be a little more brutal with it and bring up some of those stakes. I almost forgot to mention or even talk about it too. I really love the dynamic between Tatum and Sydney both in this movie. I thought the whole mother-daughter aspect of the relationship was a very welcome conclusion, and it also felt like they tried doing it differently than how they did in the Halloween trilogy, which was a very welcome thing to me because I wouldn't have liked to see that rehashed again. Even though I liked it in Halloween's 2018 trilogy, I just don't think we needed to see it again here. Do something a little more original. I also very, very much enjoyed how Sydney named her after Tatum. And then there's this whole end sequence for how she explains that she didn't name her after Tatum because Tatum was this victim and it was shrouded in death. She named her daughter after Tatum because Tatum was the last person that she fully felt like that she could trust in this world and was one of her best friends that she ever had. I just thought the whole scene was very sweet, and it was a very welcome callback to one of the better side characters from an earlier film. What I can't give much praise to, though, even though it didn't bother me much, was that killer reveal. You find out eventually that it was the neighbor, who is played by Anna Camp of Pitch Perfect fame. It took me way longer than I'd like to admit to realize it was her, even though I loved those movies so much as a teenager. But the neighbor is obsessed with Sidney Prescott, and I think the motive is very interesting, but it just was poor execution because she's upset that in the fourth movie, if you guys remember, she wrote her book Out of Darkness, where she was embracing what happened to her and all the bad things that happened, but then proceeded to go into hiding because she didn't want that life for her family and didn't want to embrace it. She wanted to put the past in the past and leave it behind. So that frustrated her, and she felt like Sydney was spitting on her legacy as a final girl, including her not being in New York in the previous film. She thought that it was messed up that Sydney wasn't there because her thought process is Sydney, at the end of the day, doesn't deserve a happy ending like everyone else does. She's a survivor, and that's all she's good for, is to continue surviving. So her plan is to kill Sydney and force Tatum into the role of being the new Scream Queen final girl, taking over her mom's place since her mother couldn't live up or make the cut, essentially, for what she didn't even sign up for. The other killer, I have no praise I can give because that is full-on Scooby-Doo. He was introduced in one other scene at the psychiatric ward when they try to convince you that Stu is still alive. You have him there mentioning how, yeah, all these years ago, there was a guy who had something heavy fall on his head and he had like full-on amnesia. And he didn't even know who he was. It was John Doe, and he was in that room actually, right down the hall. And he just got released a week ago. And yeah, it's so crazy. He got put in here though because he attacked a teenage girl. And then after he does this little exposition dump about Stu, he disappears from the movie until he eventually is unmasked as Ghostface, like right at the very end. So you just have this brief moment where you're just kind of sitting there like, who? Who are you again? Before it clicks. So I think they could have done way better with that. It went a little too on the nose, Scooby Doo. But again, it's something I expect from this franchise at the end of the day, because you can't tell me that having Mickey in Scream 2 isn't a similar thing. I mean, he had more screen time, of course, but he was like hardly in the second half of that movie. Same thing with Rowan in Scream 3. So I don't think it is the worst choice that they possibly could have made in the franchise. I just think that some of the movies really, really struggle with having a good killer reveal at the end of the film. And honestly, I kind of like the stupid soap opera-y effect this franchise has at the end of the day. Speaking of the callbacks, though, I wish this movie would have gone full soap opera and just started retconning things and throwing stuff out there. I would have had so much fun with that. I think that if they were going to throw all this shit at the wall to make the fans happy, hey, might as well go full force and go full stupid. I would have been here for it, straight up. I don't think you should have brought Stu back necessarily, but I die on the hill that Jill needs to come back, and that Jill isn't actually dead. She wasn't shot in the head, she was shot in the chest. I just want to throw that out there real quick. Plus, Emma Roberts has expressed interest in coming back to the franchise and feeling like her time isn't actually done in these movies, so I would love to see a return for that character, especially since Kevin Williamson had plans for more stuff to do with her character after Scream 4 before the studio stepped in. I think it would have been so much fun to see her, even have her just as a cameo in this movie would have been really fun, or mentioned, since this was about like Sydney's past coming to haunt her. That was literally her niece. I think that it is way more messed up than the Rowan thing, because at the end of the day, she didn't know Rowan was her half brother, versus Jill, she knew was her niece. And in the fourth movie, Jill was pushed up as being this victim before she is revealed to be the killer. So I very much think that the trauma inflicted from that would be tenfold compared to some of the other situations. Obviously, not worse than Billy and Stu. I still think that takes the cake for everything. I did like the acknowledgement, though, at the end of the movie, with all the AI showing some of our fallen characters from the franchise, showing a few of the killers. I thought it was really cool seeing Billy's mother yet again. I enjoyed seeing Rowan have his little cameo. I just love when all these movies remind you that they're connected and that they're not ignoring any entry, even if they're considered the bad entry. I mean, Scream 3 is considered the black sheep of the franchise, yet I still enjoy that it was referenced here and that they don't pretend that it just doesn't exist. Like, it doesn't feel like Scream is a franchise that is embarrassed of itself. The only thing where I can say I feel differently about that, where I feel like this movie kind of lost me a little bit, was all the references they made to New York for Scream 6 and Sydney not being there. They literally chose for her not to be there. Like, that wasn't a writing decision, that was a studio decision. So are you poking fun at the fandom, or are you poking fun at yourselves? And why are you kicking yourself so much for it? Because it just feels extremely forced. It almost feels like they're blaming the fans for her not being there, but it was like, you just wouldn't give Nev Campbell her paycheck at the end of the day. So I don't know exactly what the message they were going for there was at all. I felt like it was a really weird way to go about that, but whatever. Overall, though, I had a really fun time with this movie. I do think it's getting way more hate than it deserves. I think that it's very comical that people are acting like this is the worst movie in the franchise and that it's just this total garbage film. Like I said, I don't think it's perfect by any means or stretch of the word. I think a lot of the characters leave a lot to be desired. As I mentioned earlier, they're very flat, and there's some writing decisions in here that just aren't the best, but overall I do think it was a really fun entry in the franchise. I had a good time with it. It isn't at the top of my list by any means, and maybe it's just a recency bias, but if I were to do a ranking right now, it would probably be third or fourth place, and it just did make me want to go back and rewatch all the Scream movies again, and that's all I can ask for from a sequel. I didn't feel that way when I watched Scream 6, I can tell you that real quick. That movie, like I said, I don't hate a single movie in this franchise, but that one is easily my least favorite. Even in the movie theater, I just got bored numerous times during the sixth entry, but this one I didn't feel that way at any point. I was very much entertained throughout, even with some of the more questionable decisions and the flat characters. I was able to see past that and still have fun with this movie. But anyways, you guys should let me know what you thought of Scream 7. You should drop a comment down below. I'm thinking I may jump back and start covering the rest of the Scream movies, because if you've watched my channel at all, I've talked about it literally since my first video and referenced it and mentioned it, that the Scream franchise is one of my all-time favorite movie franchises. I have a top 3, and Scream is in there right along with Chucky and Saw. So any excuse I should get to talk about those movies, I should take more often, but just something about talking about your favorite movie for a video feels more difficult than talking about other movies, because you just feel like you want to give it justice, and I'm just like, can I give it the proper justice? Is there anything I can say about it that hasn't been said before? Or am I just yelling into the void? Because what can you say about Scream that hasn't already been said? But anyways, that's the end of my ramble. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, drop a comment down below and let me know what your thoughts are. Let's have a debate. Let's not be mean to each other. If you didn't like the movie, that's perfectly cool. Tell me why down below. And if you loved it, this is a safe space. Like, we can talk about and love this new entry together, man. Like, I'm here with you. But anyways, that wraps this up. If you're new to the channel, I would love if you hit that subscribe button. I cover everything and anything horror on this channel. But with that all out of the way, this has been Justice, and I really hope to catch you guys on the next one. Take care.